I guess the first thing that I would say is that I have to kind of take it back to that protein seems to be at the top of the list of what's going to help anybody get through any type of hormonal issues. And if we look at, one of the most common that women are probably dealing with going through menopause and into early perimenopause and into early menopause is that they have a tendency to get some thyroid dysregulation. And there's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of it has to do with the declining of progesterone and still having too much estrogen maybe around that's blocking some of these receptor sites from thyroid hormone being able to get into the body to respirate that cell. One of the easiest approaches to deal with a disorder like that is to understand how much the thyroid gland needs a high protein diet, and how one would do themselves a pretty big disservice by trying to eat more of a plant-based diet if they're needing to get more efficiency out of their thyroid, and if they're needing to convert T4 into T3 at a better rate and make it more metabolically active, that is going to rely on protein so much. So a lot of these things, Sean, that we can see that make these transitions into menopause so much more smooth is really just diet, is really getting them on a higher protein-based diet, dropping their carbohydrate back quite a bit, if not going completely carnivore for a while, or maybe even longer. But that helps the endocrine system so much that women just find the transition through menopause so much easier. Those are the women that I see do really, really well without all the problematic things of the weight gain and the hot flashes and night sweats and the problems with libido and the skin dryness or whatnot, are really helped by those rich foods, high in protein and high in good quality fats. And it's even better if they can add a little bit of organ meat in their diet to get those essential vitamins that only are fat soluble. A bullseye is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per lean muscle mass. Again, I think that would be a good medium for a woman who weighed 160, wants to weigh 140. She should probably be shooting for about 128 grams of protein. Now that sounds like a lot, but it's really not. You know that. 12 ounces of a New York strip steak is probably giving you 90 grams of protein. So, you add 2 eggs into your day, and for that woman, and you're already over what you see. The 3 declining hormones of a woman in late perimenopause of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, all of these hormones have a metabolic effect. This is where you get into a problem with a woman who's trying to do the true ketogenic diet and eat 75 to 80% of her calories from fat to stay in ketosis. Well, with that declining metabolic structure of that changing hormonal landscape, that's just way too much fat. That fat is not going to get burnt. It's going to get stored away somewhere. And so that's where I see them having a real struggle following this diet and saying, I'm doing everything perfectly the way that this thing was set up for the 75% fat, keeping the protein kind of moderately low, and then keeping your carbs really low. I see these women stalling, and how we change that is we push that protein quite a bit up and drop that fat back more to like a moderate level. Kind of stick with the fat that comes with the protein that you're choosing to eat, whether that be steak or whether that be salmon or whatever it is. You don't really need to add a bunch of cooking fat to that. You just need to put enough in there to, make it not stick to your pan. You just led me to understand something that I have never thought through, and that is why it is that I see so many women actually who are going through hormonal issues doing better on eating some leaner amounts of protein. Because if that's the case, then that extra cholesterol, which is then going to be converted into pregnenolone and then converted into progesterone, and then all the steroid hormones are going to be made, they're actually giving their body a far better building block with going with the sirloin than the ribeye sometimes. killing the people, let's just say in the United States, such as diabetes and cancer and cardiovascular disease, that we freely allow the production of hyper palatable foods that do nothing but drive this whole mechanism of hyperinsulinemia, which leads to this terrible amount of cascade of inflammation and hormonal dysregulation. We're still seem to be looking for the pharmaceutical way out of this thing. Multiple unresearched, unscientific injectables into your body, then to get your lazy ass up off the couch and go do what you need to do and formulate a diet that would give you nutrient density to protect all of those mechanisms, build your, get your vitamin D levels up through sunshine and eating organ meat and butter. And these types of things that aren't getting talked about. There are still gastroenterologists that are telling people with Crohn's disease and IBS and all this other stuff that it doesn't have anything to do with what you eat. We have got to get this processed food out of your diet. But if we can't even get doctors to admit that what you eat has anything to do with GI problems, then, I mean, look how far behind the curve we are. You need to get away from that. The answers to your health, lie in this disease management model of healthcare, and start realizing that the way out for you is that you've got to take some responsibility. You show people what are the benefits of actually building a lifestyle and a regime like you do of moving heavy things, eating high density food, and it leads to you have a better quality of life than a lot of people. And so if we're going to win this thing, it's going to be like that. It's going to be us standing up and going, you got to take responsibility. You need to educate yourself. You need to look out to those people that are actually producing results and follow them. I don't think that people who eat a higher protein diet, who show up with, especially like morning higher blood glucose numbers, is problematic at all. To me, what it means is that your glucagon mechanism is working. And what's happening is that higher protein that you're taking in is releasing glucagon, which is telling your liver to dump stored glycogen. And I think that that's what you want to be happening. And so usually what will happen for these people is they'll say, I keep waking up with a level of 130 or 140, but by the time I eat my first meal of the day and then throughout the day, my sugar levels are down in between 1 and 110. So what is the problem? Like, how dangerous is this? And I'm thinking it's not dangerous at all. It just means that your hormones are working for you, and especially glucagon is doing a good job. So I see it as not problematic. Do you see the benefit of having low fasting insulin as being more important than what on an hourly basis your blood glucose is doing?
One of the things we know is that our morning fasting insulin is variable. So you can check it one day, it might be 7, one day it might be 3, and one day it might be 12. And so it's not, because when I talked to Jason Fung about that years ago when he was doing a lot of fasting, I said, how often do you measure fasting insulin? Because we were all excited about that. And he says, I'm finding it to be very unreliable. It's a very labile metric. And so if you measure it if there's quite a bit of day-to-day variability, you don't know. And obviously our blood glucose changes every friggin' 15 minutes. And so maybe it is about just maintaining lean mass and function and all those things. And these other things are just kind of mentally exhausting to worry about. I think it's important, like when somebody's, I get a lot of diabetics, and I talk, obviously, hey, monitor these things, get a finger stick or CGM or something, and know what your body's doing at certain times. And I think you can say, exercise is generally going to be a good thing, and whether it makes your blood glucose go up or down, and that depends upon the intensity of the exercise largely. High intense sprinting, lifting weights is going to go up, and low steady stuff is going to go down typically. So know what's going on with your body and know why it's occurring, rather than that it's occurring and saying it's always bad. And again, like I said, if I'm going to eat more protein, I'm going to probably wake up with a higher fasting blood glucose, particularly if I eat it later in the day.
I would say across the board, still, I would say yes, but I would say any woman beyond the age of probably 42, I think it's absolutely imperative. I think that some of their biggest risk factors because of the declining of the progesterone, the estrogen, and testosterone are going to be things like osteopenia. Certainly, they're going to be losing muscle mass, and that's going to drop metabolic rate. That's going to make it harder to stay lean. And that also is going to have a direct effect on the nervous system. So I think that that's my go-to with any woman who above the age of 42 is, you can do what you want with cardio, but what you really need to be doing is strength training. You need to be making yourself as strong as you possibly can. And that seems to balance out so many things and remove a lot of risk factors for sure. So you need to be able to eat to a point and then stop eating. Well, that's really, really hard to do when you're eating McDonald's and fries and drinking Coca-Cola. So the answer and what people can do, it's just a matter of whether they've decided I don't want to do it, is they can go out and experience in a very short period of time, probably by going through, one of your protocols or whatnot of eating a diet that's meat-based for a period of time and having not only all of that nutrient density that will that will handle the ghrelin and leptin kind of balance, but also the production of those ketones that are going to come from burning your own body fat that are satiating and take that away. We don't have enough of a model where we're teaching people that there is a way to eat that's pleasurable, that's very satiating, and at the same time gets you leaner. There's still the majority of the medical community who believes that, that this whole problem is you don't exercise enough and you eat too many calories. There's a lot more biochemistry going on than that conversation, and that hasn't come forefront enough yet is what so the progesterone's easy. I prefer, there's a company called Bezwecken out of Oregon, and they make a progesterone called Proganol. I think I just think it's top of the line. It's just done wonders for people for 20 years. So, I haven't changed that's my favorite. Where if you're a peri or postmenopausal woman and you're really in a state of decline of some of these metabolic actively hormones, and you push your body into a period of time where you haven't taken in any, probably cholesterol, probably has a whole lot to do with that. But eventually what will happen is that this is going to spike cortisol from the adrenal glands. And if your adrenal glands are already compromised, what I find is you're not getting a whole lot of benefit out of fasting. So what I've seen over the years is, and I'm pretty comfortable with this, I think there's some real benefit in middle-aged women to going up to maybe a 36-hour fast twice a month, maybe once a week doing an OMAD or a 24-hour fast. I think there's some benefit to that. But outside of that, I see more problems with women who are trying to do 72 hours and further. I find that it ends up doing more harm than good.